Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Enrico Sassoon speaking. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Italian edition of the Harvard Business Review. And I'm really happy to welcome you to this online meeting on some very interesting leadership issues that we have organized in partnership with Angelini Academy, the corporate academy of Angelini Industries. Along with Angelini Academy, we have decided to investigate what we consider to be a central competence in today's business world: the capacity of managing accelerated processes of change within and outside the company. This is actually a very important issue for every company of any size and industry, and it's becoming more important every day. Companies are operating in an increasingly competitive environment, strongly characterized by volatility and uncertainty, and which is remarkably complex and even ambiguous. It is therefore increasingly important for any manager to succeed in developing the ability to manage the quick changes in daily as much as in long-term operations. This involves the capacity of one, making the right decision in the uncertain situations; two, of properly reading and interpreting cultural changes; three, of managing the difficult shift from the traditional way of working to a new one, increasingly hybrid, and I would also say liquid; fourth, of understanding and practicing the power of networking; fifth, of meeting the new requirements of a workforce which today easily extends on 4, but even 5 generations; and last but not least, of developing diversity and inclusion in all the conceivable aspects of company's life. We will listen to our distinguished guests to understand what all this means for them in their specific field of activity. What is clear is that to thrive in increasingly competitive markets, every company needs leaders that know how to inspire others and have everyone in the organization share the same view on making the best to manage change in always new and often unexpected situations. These are the very important topics we are going to deal with today. So now let me introduce our distinguished panelists. We have with us Silvia Zamboni, Professoressa Silvia Zamboni, which is the Scientific Director of Future Leaders Program of the Business School of the Bocconi University, SDA Bocconi. Paolo Fiorelli, Chairman and CEO of MBE Worldwide. Andrea Granelli, Founder and Managing Director of the consulting company Canso. Let me say that I'm really very grateful to all of you for being here with us today. We look forward to a very interesting workshop on this very interesting topic. Let's start with Silvia Zamboni. Silvia, in an increasingly uncertain and volatile environment, reacting to change to adapt to new conditions is quite important. But even more important is to be able to anticipate change, because often simply reacting is equivalent to being systematically late given the speed of change. But of course, anticipating change is a difficult task, which cannot be entrusted to individuals, or not only to individuals. It must be managed by forward-looking teams, which in turn need to be embedded in a forward-looking organization. If this is true, Silvia, what skills are needed, how to search for them outside the organization, how to develop them in the interior?
Okay, thank you for the invitation and good afternoon to everybody. Of course, it's true. So nowadays it's quite difficult, if not impossible, to make structured strategic plan and strictly adhere to them. It's even difficult to do it in simple projects. So the plans change continuously and adapt to the evolution of the real world, based on insights and data that become available. Both internal to the organization and above all, also externally. This is what we call being agile. So today we have a lot of technology available if you want to collect the data, to collect insights. We often mention a trend toward the so-called data-driven decision processes. The truth is that people need to know how to interpret this data and how to combine them in order to define which is the best direction to take, at least the best direction based on the estimate of this data that we have at the time of the decision. So change can be promoted or interpreted by people, both individually and in groups. So the ability to develop constructive interaction with colleagues in other position, in other functions, and in other role becomes crucial, in my opinion, in order to achieve an effective interpretation of what the competitive context, of how the competitive context is evolving, and then to think and implement solutions that increasingly will not impact only on one function, but on transversal processes. So cultural change, in my opinion, requires having the clarity of the objectives of the change, or at least on the direction of the change. In brief, the so-called why we have to modify something, why we have to reach specific goals, instead of working on only the what, so what we have to do. Why we are doing something and why we need to do it. So in conclusion, the skills required are twofold: specialized in one field, and then based on general management, having the possibility to interact with other colleagues in order to combine the specific competencies with the competencies of others. It is a matter of creating a common language among different people with different specialized skills. No one can be expert in everything. So this combination of competencies in a context of high uncertainty, as you said, high variability, is exactly the ability to integrate and interpret these pieces of information in short time. This collaboration goes also beyond the boundaries of the company, and understanding what are the strategic competencies to maintain inside the company, and understanding where to look for and how to combine external competencies from other companies, other players, will be another important point. So here, the cultural change should embrace also the acceptance of the fact that not all the ideas or not all the solutions come inside the company, but could be combined outside. And the capability to integrate them is fundamental.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, Silvia, for your considerations. Now, let's turn to Paolo Fiorelli. Let me introduce Paolo and his remarkable company. Paolo is president and CEO of MBE Worldwide, as I already said. This is a group active in the fields of shipping, logistics, and e-commerce solutions in marketing and printing. The group has been founded in California in 1980 as mailboxes, etc. Was introduced in Italy in 1993 by the Fiorelli family itself, who acquired the trademark license from MBE. Since the opening of the first pilot center in Milan in 1993, the Italian network has reached over 500 affiliate centers. In 2009, the Italian MBE Worldwide, which is a company wholly owned by the Fiorelli family, acquired from MBE Incorporated, in turn owned by UPS, all the mailboxes, etc. activities worldwide, with just the exception of United States and Canada. The MBE Worldwide Group operates now with almost 3,000 service centers in 53 countries, with an aggregate turnover of around 1 billion euros. So this is a very remarkable company, as I said, Paolo, and really congratulations for this incredible growth you had worldwide over the years. Now it's a terrific success story of continuous change and systematic growth based both on internal and external lines, thanks to or even many important acquisitions over time. This very strong growth has required an intense evolution, both from a cultural and an organizational point of view. So how did you manage these changes that, let's remember, have been continuous, intense, and very accelerated?
Thank you very much, Enrico, and hi, everyone. Again, the company is offering to SMEs business services in the following arena, just Enrico was saying: e-commerce, warehouse and fulfillment, shipping, print and marketing. Okay, we do it with a phygital approach. We have both the physical presence of location, 3,000 centers in over 53 countries, and then we have this one umbrella company called PrestaShop, which is an acquisition we made beginning of December last year, which does help us serving those SMEs with the e-commerce capabilities. Enrico was reminding everyone, our revenue is about 1 billion. Our GMV in the e-commerce sector is about 22 billion. We did grow organically. We did grow through M&A. In the last 5 years, we invested more or less 300 million in a string of acquisition in different moments and industries, both networks like ours, for example, Australia, and again, e-commerce totally different than ours, which will help us serving better our SMEs. Okay, what has been crucial for us in this over 27, 28 years of history? People. Okay, people are crucial to drive depth and velocity of change, which, by the way, given market velocity, okay, is unfortunately never fast enough. Okay, so you got to run no matter what. We moved from 10 people in 1993. Today, there are about 12,000 associates in some, again, 53 countries. When you grow so rapidly, okay, how you as a team protect and develop the culture and the company DNA is super relevant. So to me, the first real ingredient of the recipe is the great care you have to put in the recruiting process, the great care you have to give to talent management and retention. Today, I spend about 60% of my time on people-related matters. Again, most relevant investment a company makes is always people. You have to invest a lot and possibly ahead of time, which is not always easy. If you want to be ready, you got to prepare yourself. Okay, so what is called excessive management, you have to allow yourself a little bit of excessive management. So when it's time to make that investment, when you are ready, whatever the investment, like Silvia was mentioning before, you don't know what's coming. Okay, those curveballs will happen. Okay. And again, the more the velocity, the more the curveballs will happen. A couple of examples, Enrico was saying that it's wholly owned. It's not anymore. I mean, we thought that something was coming, and so we need to prepare ourselves. And in 2020, a week before the lockdown, as a matter of fact, okay, we brought on board a minority partner, a private equity by the name of Oaktree, to prepare for future development, okay, and to give us additional resources to face those strategic steps we wanted to take, okay. Since 2018, our board is made of mostly independent members, okay. 4 out of 7 are independent, and today the company, I'm the only one representative of my family in an executive position at the company, okay. Again, you need to allow yourself people and talents to drive growth and to face change and to possibly to anticipate change. It's difficult, but you see those trends where they're going. And the other comment I want to make is on the decision-making process. Okay, over time, we move from a one-man show, from a me type of company, to a one-team show, to a we type of company. And I think is crucial. Now it is crucial. Is the combination of different competencies and talents you cannot do without. If you remind yourself that perfection is enemy of good, and that too much analysis means paralysis, the moving from a me approach to a we approach becomes a real strength and a great enabler for change. Thank you.
Thank you, Paolo. This is a really very interesting experience, and the fact that you stress so much the people-centered organization is really very important for us because it demonstrates that in a period of very rapid change, not only from the point of view of the markets, of the finance, of any kind of variable we want to take into consideration, but mainly also from the technological point of view, people remain at the very center of our activity, must be put in the very center of our activity. We come back later to the point of technology change, which is I know has been very important for your company in particular. Now let's go to Andrea Granelli. Andrea, as I said, is chairman of a consulting company whose name is Canso. Andrea, when you talk about change, we increasingly refer to how not only organizations, processes, and business models are changing, but also, and perhaps mainly, mindset. We were just talking about people a few moments ago. Especially among young people, there is a growing attention to issues such as sustainability, values, and objectives, both at a personal and at a company level. The growing phenomenon called the Great Resignation tells us that purpose is not only an abstract idea, but a new way of seeing work, company, and society. So in this new way of seeing change, the question is if this new way of seeing change is well understood by companies, in your opinion, and what do you think is needed to make this mentality change consistent with the complex transformation processes that companies must carry on today?
Thank you, Enrico, for the question and from being here. So I think that the first ingredient is the purpose. Silvia, I agree with Silvia, the why is very important. The problem is that this purpose should be concrete. It's not an abstract idea, but not too concrete. It's very complex to define a purpose. The purpose should leave some room for individual dreaming. In other words, it should engage people not only in executing very specific tasks, but also in imagining his or her role and contribution to the overall objective. The purpose should help people to become hero of the company. This is not an easy task. We must feel the purpose, not only in the brain, but also in the earth. So how can we build a strong purpose? I think I see three activities that we must carry out. The first is to make sure that the purpose is a good one. Okay, it should be strong, should be ambitious, should be inspiring, but not too ambitious. Because if it's too ambitious, if the task is impossible, if the dream is really an impossible dream, people tend to disengage. So be ambitious, but not too much. And then it's not to be trivial, because if it's too trivial, too numerical, too much connected to financial objective, for example, it doesn't ignite passion. So the first element is to be sure to create a purpose which is strong and capable of moving Earth. The second activity, I think, is make sure that the leader and her team perform consequently. The leader must act in a manner which is consistent with the purpose. This is very important, and sometimes it's very difficult to them. The worst enemy in the spread of purpose around the organization is the incoherence of the propagators. The language of purpose requires more action than speech and declaration. You have to demonstrate the purpose doing things in a manner which is coherent. This is not an easy task. Also, the leader should adapt themselves to be sure that they are coherent with the purpose. And then the second aspect, the second activity that has to be carried out is the contribution of the single manager in the propagation of the purpose in the organization. Every manager, and this is typically a mentor's task, should support the team in understanding and translating the company's purpose in an individual purpose, which will guide action and decision. It's not important, not only acting, also taking decisions which are coherent with the why, with the purpose. Everybody must find the place, a visible place, in the realization of the purpose. Everyone must feel useful. I have to feel very clearly, how do I contribute to the purpose? Otherwise, if there is no the single contribution, which is visible, I'm not engaged in the purpose. The purpose is not capable of acting this power of ignition, ignite the passion of the people. So I think that the challenge is this one, to transform manager in mentor. It's not easy to act as a mentor with the team. It's a very delicate task. And this mentorship capability and attitude force managers to spend time with the team, helping to understand deeply the purpose, understand the implication of the purpose in terms of individual activities. So it's a very, from one side, a very complex communication task, and on the other side is a very complicated psychological task to understand and to adapt the purpose, the global purpose to the individual action. This, I think, is the core of mindset change. We don't change mindset through video clip of self-training tools, or just because we decided to change. No, it's a very long process that requires an ongoing dialogue with other people where to find confirmation and inspiration. It's a long journey. If you remember Socrates, the father of dialectics, Socrates didn't write books. Socrates believed that the only way to change behavior, to change attitude, change mindset is through dialogue. Dialogue which imply critics, challenge, of course, passion. But if we don't start this, if we don't build mental capability to manage it, we will help spread the purpose from the leader to the bottom line of the company. I think that a good purpose enough is not capable of changing behaviors. We have to work on both dimensions.
Yeah, thank you very much, Andrea. Absolutely, this is really the real changes that we face today, and mainly with the younger generations, or millennials, whatever, Z generation, and so on. So this is really the one of the main difficult tasks that we face today, every one of us. Okay, let's go back to Silvia Zamboni. Silvia, you are the scientific director of the Future Leaders Program of the business school of the Bocconi University, which is the Bocconi University, the most important and qualified Italian economic university, one of the best in the world. It is the school of managers who would not only like to improve their specific skills, but also to strengthen their strategic vision in order to succeed in correctly framing their competences relative to their targets and those of the organization to which they belong. In short, people need to know how to manage change in every instance and not only in their specific competence area. So how do you achieve this? How is your teaching structured and aimed at giving managers the tools they need to achieve these goals?
The Future Leader programs for Angelini, for example, of SDA Bocconi, is designed with the key objective of creating that language of interpretation of economic phenomena and business processes in order to make potential future managers capable of integrating information that comes from outside their own specific field of competence. We mentioned many times this the importance of integrating information. So the goal of our program is exactly to develop the ability to learn also from colleagues or from other contexts that are unknown, uncertain, and different than the one of origin. So transferring both hard competencies, so you have to know how to interpret information, you have to know how to design a business plan, you have to know how to conduct a team or to organize an innovation process. But on the other side also, you have to deal with people. So we try to transfer systematic competencies in order to work and to solve a problem in a systematic way. So this means not having all the answers already at the beginning, but knowing what questions to ask, where to look for valuable information and insights, and understanding the reason why we implement some changes or we want to improve processes. So the reason at the basis of action and choices to be made within the organization, and that comes from outside. So in this way, the toolbox of competencies and technique can be used to face the various opportunities of change or to face the change, so the answers to change. So essential is the ability to develop relationships with colleagues, to bring junior and senior into relationships, to create connection among different generations of people with different approaches to define and then solve problems. So in our program, for example, we combine the didactical part, the theoretical part through business cases, and then the application in 2 different job rotations. So through the help of supervisors and mentors that are senior managers, we will let participants, so talents, to develop in a protected field their capability to propose new approaches or to solve problems with the help of seniors, so with the help of people that put them in contact with the rest of the organization. In recent years, well before the pandemic, management is required to make difficult decisions when dealing with people that are resistant to change or that do not share the same purpose idea or the same values of the company. We mentioned before the importance of the purpose. So basically, managers themselves, senior managers themselves, can no longer count on their comfort zone based on its professional path in which to settle down. The volatility, the complexity, the variability of the context oblige them to take important decisions in shorter time. So you have to be prepared on how to interpret the phenomenon, but also you have to be prepared on how to collect the important information from your colleagues, senior, younger, different point of view, put it together that can give you the insights to take a decision in quicker time. And this is, let's say, the new reality of continuous change that requires specific choices and capability to interpret and to adapt the world. I think that this is the new normal to get used to. And it's not so easy also for people that are used to have a structured plan to be implemented, an actionable plan that to be implemented. So the direction is important. The capability to design the direction and to communicate also the direction. We didn't mention the importance of communication, clear communication, not of the task to be performed, but clear communication of the generic goal and the purpose. And then the ability to be open to change, be open to insert new information in the process that could improve the direction in order to reach the final goal.
Yeah, thank you very much, Silvia. Actually, we are in a new world, and I would say, if I can say so, the new normal is that we are going towards a never normal situation. So we must be prepared and we must expect continuous change, which in turn involves what you have just said, the availability and the orientation to not only understand the change, but to adapt and to evolve our knowledge, which is becoming very, very quickly obsolete. Once again, this asks for a continuous learning process through the entire life cycle in the company and in our individual lives.
Yes, and be able to continuously learn. So
absolutely.
The capability to know how to learn from others, how to learn from new situations. We can philosophically talk about what is normality if we want, but it's a complete other discussion.
Yes, this would be very interesting. We will make this point in another webinar, perhaps, if Angelini wants to make so. So let's go back to Paolo Fiorelli. Paolo, the company, we had just mentioned that before, has systematically evolved its technological capabilities, also thanks to the already mentioned many acquisitions that you have done. Technology is an enabler of many change processes, but of course it must be properly managed to ensure that people are able to use it in the most appropriate way. Otherwise, and we have just mentioned that also, there's a risk of, instead of favoring change, collaborators will develop a harmful resistance to change. What is your experience in this regard?
Thank you, Enrico. Okay, for MBE, technology is both an enabler for business and a business. Enabler when, for example, stores do have their own transport management system, and they have to use it in every day to make sure that a shipment goes from end to end. It's a business because for PrestaShop, technology is the business. It is obvious to say that we must live and breathe technology nowadays. We can't do it anymore without it anymore. It's obvious. It's not obvious when you then try to adapt it to people. Okay, and we have. You said before we almost have 5 generations. I didn't make the numbers, but there is a very different representation of a generation within our workforce nowadays. Okay, so we have to have people through proper training and retraining embracing technology. In our case, for example, we did it via we recently bought an Italian software platform to distribute know-how, and a lot of that know-how is technology focused. Let's think that when we talk about training, technology training, or training in general, we need to train 3,000 locations and 12,000 people, very much distributed in a very diverse, language-wise only, world. Strategic-wise, we thought long time ago, 2016, we wanted to move from a pure atoms type of company to a combination of atoms and bits. I did steal this from Nicolas Negroponte. There was a famous book many years ago about the combination of atom and bits. And I think that now today, that whatever goes under the umbrella of Phygital is very much the atoms and bits together. And we did PrestaShop. We did, for example, an acquisition of a company called my goodness, it's in Australia, and it's our CRM company that does enable us to offer a technology to support the sales process of the franchisees. We're close to close PrintSpeak, that's the name of it, okay? And we're close to close another acquisition of a small platform that was within the Polyme incubator that did develop a platform for access point for shipping and related services. So the need for us to either shop around for those competencies, whether it's through training and support people with training, adding people in the recent acquisition we made, we knew we didn't have in our current capabilities that managerial capability to support PrestaShop. So we brought on board someone that could act as a link between business and technology with that competencies that we didn't have on board. And finally, sometimes we think to acquisitions as a way, not because of to bring on board capabilities, tech capabilities. And so we think acquisition, not because of the size of those companies, but because of the competencies of those teams. I mean, it's nothing new, nothing major, and obviously it's related to the size of our company. But again, bringing that change from outside and does help it. As I was saying, people by coaching and mentoring, okay, others, okay, or developing those from within. I think that the two must go together nowadays, because again, knowledge is so wide and deep that it would be I would say silly to think that you can fulfill those just with the base you have. So the combination of the two is definitely for us being very much successful, and hopefully will be even more in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Paolo. A success that is not coming, I mean, by itself, of course, and what comes out, what emerges from your experience is that you have to be very much conscious of what are the consequences of change and what you have to do to face change in never always accelerated change from this point of view. So this is a very interesting experience, the one that you have told us. So thank you very much. Let's stay in discussing a point that has been raised by Paolo a few minutes ago, the one of resistance to change that in some cases comes out and emerges in companies. Andrea, a central goal is to overcome the widespread resistance to change due to the first that are only partially recognizable and rational. This obviously makes it more difficult to make the processes of change coherent and concrete, as you just mentioned in your first round. How do you counter the fear of change, since these are often factors related to people's psychologies and emotionality? Are training courses that are often referred to as a suitable tool for the task really useful? Or should we act differently? What is your opinion on all this, which is very important and not enough discussed, in my opinion?
Very complex question, Enrico.
Yes, it is. I'm sorry.
So I think that change is always a risky business. It's always emotional engaging, always. We go from a known, usually controlled situation to an unknown one, where also the recipe to win are not clear, is unknown, or at least they are not sufficiently experienced. So the challenge is building emotional intelligence, or in other words, emotional literacy. I prefer this expression, emotional literacy, much more than intelligence. Organized knowledge, would say, is a very difficult task. And this, I think, is probably the issue in the change process, build emotional intelligence, in people. There is a widespread skill shortage in terms of emotion. Maybe there is a famine of emotional skills, more than digital, I would say. And the pandemic situation demonstrated that managers are not capable of understanding the emotional situation of their teams, for example. So what can we do to prepare for that change? Certainly, we need some knowledge of psychology. We have to learn psychology. I do believe this is important, also for managers. We must be able to recognize and name emotion, psychological barriers, pathologies also. Pathologies are happening in the dynamics of companies. We have to be able to distinguish between fear, anxiety, anger, but also understanding the denial, the projection, or the cognitive distortions are part of the process of interacting, taking decision. Otherwise, if we have not this literacy, we cannot act with clarity of mind. And the risk is to fall into the spiral of emotional reaction, reacting to an emotion with an emotion. We have to block this. This is too critical. So the anthropologist Tiffany Watt-Smith said it very well, in some way enriching the concept of emotional intelligence, which was invented by Goleman. She says, emotional intelligence is the skill of being able to recognize and name your own emotion and those of other people. It's not only empathy or social intelligence, it's much more than that. To be able to name and recognize means to have some psychological competence. But emotion is not only a problem of literacy, it's not only a problem of learning. The emotion should be practiced, experienced, also meditated upon. We have to meditate about what's happening to us. Why are we reacting this way? And there is a substantial difference between emotion and feelings. And this difference was brought to light by Antonio Damasio, a very famous one of the fathers of the neuroscience in the 90s. He wrote a very famous book called Descartes Error, L'errore di Cartesio in Italian, very important. There is a major difference between emotion and feelings. The problem is not feeling emotion. It's normal to feel emotion. The problem is the judgment about the fact that we are feeling emotions. So it's normal to be afraid. The problem arises when we do not accept that we are afraid and we feel cowardly. That's the problem, is the engage of the brain judging the emotion. It's not having emotions, it's judging emotion. This is the question. And so I think this is the point, is very important point, and we have to learn this. We have to have competence to understand and to differentiate emotion. So to conclude, I believe that in order to face a change, we need to develop an emotional awareness, and this will require time, study, and also practice. But but despite we are entering a type of crisis where the crisis forces us to be more emotional, to manage our emotion, I don't see the effort in terms of manager to spend time. I don't see adequate attention to the problem in company and manager. Again, we think that emotion not so important. The strong leader has no emotion. Control the emotion. No, the problem is not controlling emotion. It's leveraging on emotion and controlling the judgment.
Thank you very much, Andrea. Thank you very much indeed. Very interesting consideration, and all of us should make some kind of thinking on this in a more continuous and in a more depth, if I can say so, than that we are used to do normally. So now we have reached the end of this very dense and fruitful discussion. So I'm very grateful to all of you for your great contribution and stimulating ideas. I think that we had a very interesting discussion on the issues of today's webinar. I hope that this workshop has been as interesting for those who have been listening to us as it has been for us to make. Now, a special thanks to Angelini Industries and Angelini Academy for having started this important initiative. This webinar has been recorded and will be soon available on HBR Italy website. So thank everyone again for watching. We do hope to have given you some reason to follow our activities even in the future. And thank you very much again, Silvia Zamboni, Paolo Fiorelli, and Andrea Granelli for your remarkable contribution. So once again, thank you to all of us, to everyone that have been listening, and goodbye, and to our next appointment.